Let's go right back to the phones and talk to Pat. You're on the Under the Hood show, Pat. What can we do for you?
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. It's such a joy to talk with you. I have a 2017 Mustang, a ruby red Mustang, absolutely beautiful, that I really am enjoying. It's got so many bells and whistles on it. Half of them I don't use, and I don't. Some of them I don't even know what it works. But on the steering wheel, in the cross part of the steering wheel, up on the right side and the left side is a little tab, and one tab has a plus on it, and one has a minus on it. And I don't know what those tabs are for, and I'm afraid to push them when I don't know what they'll do.
Are they behind the steering wheel on like a paddle?
They're above the bar.
No, 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 they're right on. They aren't very big. They're small.
Okay. They're like right on the, okay.
Right on the steering wheel. And lots of times, when you're driving, if you put your hands, you have to be careful if you put your hands there, because you might push that little tab without knowing it. And as I say, I don't know what it does. One says plus and one says minus. Now, I went through the manuals that came with the car. I bought it brand new. And there's nothing about those two little tabs.
It's listed in the owner's manual under shifting, under transmission. I was looking at one the other day. It's not listed under steering controls in the manual I was looking at. It was listed under transmission. That's to shift your transmission. That is to put it in the manual mode, in the sport mode, and change your gears. They're paddle shifters. You can change them up and down, and that is the universal symbol
on the steering wheel.
That is the universal. I got them in the Camaro too. That is now the new universal symbol for up and down for your gears. Just a plus and minus. You put the transmission into the M mode, the manual mode, and that's what they're for. So if you were to be at a stop sign and have your foot on the brake in gear, you could hit that minus button, and if you look at your gear shift indicator, it should go down to 1, and it'll stay there when you accelerate, until you push the button, and then it'll shift to 2. And if you're really good, you can stand on the gas, let off, and hit the second button and stand on it again, and it'll change gears. But you got to get kind of used to where you're doing it. But it's a sport mode. And I know you've had a couple sporty cars now. You had that SS Monte Carlo, and you had this one.
Yep,
and
I do. Yep.
And I know I've had people say, well, is it supercharged or not, when we're talking about cars, and they're like, I'm too old for that. I'm in my 50s. I'm too old for those sports cars. Do you want to tell our listeners how old you are or how young you are?
Sure. I'm 89 years old.
I absolutely love it.
We love you.
Yeah,
You're amazing.
I love a car. I've always loved a car, and I've always had a nice car. And but I've had a lot of fun with this Mustang. I can't take it out even to the grocery store, and somebody will come and say, "Boy, that is a sharp car."
If I were to make a life goal, it would be that I would still want a Mustang at 89 years old. My wife is quite the motorhead. She likes having fun in a vehicle and going fast from time to time, and I could see her thinking paddle shifters are still okay at 89. Let's hope that's the case.
Right.
But that's fun. And I know, and the dealer that sold you that car, it's gotten to be anymore that when they offer, if they do, and they should, because part of the Ford experience or the Toyota experience or the Nissan experience, it's such a big deal anymore. The buying experience, you see the dealerships are all building these delivery areas in their dealerships where you bring the car in, and when you get there, they've got the vehicle sitting in their delivery bay, and then they do a walk around with you. There should be a lot of time spent with you to answer any questions that you might have. And sometimes what happens is you forget things that come up, or they may not show you, and then you drive the vehicle for a little bit. Don't be afraid to go back and get a hold of your salesman and say, hey, can you Can you show me around this again? I've driven it long enough now where I know the main stuff is that, but just teach me a few more things here.
Well, Pat, have you ever used paddle shifters before? I think there's a good chance you might have.
No, I
Okay.
don't think I have. No,
Okay.
but getting back to the dealer, yes. Unfortunately, the salesman that sold me the car, he was very good. But he went over now to Chevrolet, and he's selling Camaros and Chevrolet products. So I did call him and talk to him about it, and he said to me, "Well, bring it over here." He says, "Bring it over to the Chevrolet garage, and I'll take a look." But he couldn't tell me right offhand what it was, like you
Same
did.
thing.
I mean,
Yeah, same
and
thing
I
on the
knew
Camaro.
I knew perfectly well if I called you that you would be able to answer my question. Well, I was over there the other day at my dealer, my Ford dealer, and I watched them unload the very first all-electric Mustang.
Oh, the Mach-E.
Yep.
Yep.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
there was just
They-
recently a test on that in the Motor Trend magazine here, and they tested the
Boy,
the
Pat,
Mustang.
do I want you to get a Mustang Mach-E.
Yeah, they tested the Mach-E against the Tesla Model Y, and it was just quite interesting seeing what Tesla has done with these electric vehicles for quite a while now, over 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
People don't even realize that when you say it out loud. And now Ford enters the arena, and how they were impressed how Ford got a lot right on their first attempt. And so that was probably pretty fun. I know the local Ford dealers invited us down, and we just haven't taken them up on it yet to go down and test drive the Mach-E, and we've got to get that done yet. But that is quite a vehicle for Ford to be able to say they've put that out, just technology-wise. I love when you call, Pat. This is great. Russ has remembered that you had that Monte Carlo. I totally forgot about that. That's awesome.
Pat, thanks very much for the call. And for the rest of our listeners, I was totally confused and my mind is now blown. I just looked up that steering wheel online, and if you had your hands at 9 and 3 or 10 and 2, just above the center, it's got 3 bars on the steering wheel, and the 2 basically are flat. So it's basically 9 to 3 is where the bars are. If you grab it above there at 10 and 2, there is up where your thumb would press up on top of that on the steering wheel itself. There's paddle shifters. I've never seen that, and it looks.
Because you would have thought volume controls for the radio at first when she
I
called
was
in.
thinking it was in the middle of this, or at least on the bars of the what are
And
those
their
called?
press on the Ford, on the Chevrolet, they're behind at 9 and 3. You've got to reach behind and pull them back. as
This
you
one
go.
is very much like the volume knob on a radio, but it's on the steering wheel
They
itself.
can be kind of fun. If you can either hold the thing to the floor and pull it, and it'll just shift. Or if you take off from a stop and you've got it in one, you can floor it, take off, and when you get up to about $5,000, if you let off the throttle and hit the plus and then stand on it again, it'll sound and feel just like a manual trans car when it shifts because it knows you're doing that. It's kind of pre-programmed into it. So, otherwise, I'm like, I don't know what the point is of having those paddle shifters.
I'd like to try it.
A lot of people don't use them.
Pat, thanks very much for the call. Let's talk to Bob, who's in Idaho. Bob, you're on the Under the Hood show. What can we do for you?
Hello, I have a 1923 Model T truck that has an auxiliary 3-speed transmission mounted behind the regular one. I'm wondering what weight oil to put in that for fluid. The rear intake's 600, but I can't find anything on that 3-speed. I've been running 90 weight, but I wanted to know if you had any idea what I should do with that.
I have taken mine out, but I always ran 80-90 in it. Gear oil,
Okay.
just hypoid gear oil.
Well, it seems to run okay with it.
Yeah, and I think that's from all the people that I had that ran that. See, that was an auxiliary unit that was made. My Model T, it's my TT truck. The ton truck was made in 25, and I got to learn. That was the first vehicle I got to learn specs on and things. So I remembered a lot of it because I was so young. But our neighbor, who was 80 years old back in 1980, was an engineer at Ford Motor Company when we lived in Detroit there. And he was talking about that. We had a 2-speed rear end and the 3-speed auxiliary trans on it. The 2-speed rear end was not a factory part, and that transmission was not a factory part. So they didn't even know for sure what was, what was supposed to be in there. But at the time, we were running the 80, 90 or just straight 90 weight in there, and that worked.
So Bob's right in there. He's handling it.
How fast does yours go with that? It'll go about 35 miles an hour, won't it, with that in high gear?
Yeah, that's about as fast as I dare go.
Well, doesn't the front end shake like crazy and give you a death wobble at that speed sometimes?
Well, that's what they call it, galloping Gertie, isn't it? I mean, it's something.
That's you got to be careful because it will break the spokes in the front wheels. They're not very strong compared to the rear, so keep that in mind. And air pressure makes a huge difference in the front and death wobble on that.
Bob, thanks very much for the call.